everyone who's watching Ron's Basement, understand this. If you're in a state that's trying to get gold and silver done, you have time right now during the summer while your General Assembly is out of session to start a grassroots army to get that legislation across the finish line in your state.
Today, we have a special guest. Pat Holland returns to Ron's Basement. He's going to bring us up to speed on the gold and silver legal tender legislation in Missouri. We know that last year there was a wave of states that were passing laws to allow their citizens to reclaim their right to use gold and silver as legal tender. Missouri got real close, but we're not down and out. We're going to come back next year. Pat's going to give us an update. Pat, welcome back to Ron's Basement.
Hey there, Ron. It's been a while. How's Smitty doing? I don't see him right now.
Smitty, yes, Smitty's, you see him, he's over. I think there he is right there. Yeah, Smitty the silver bear.
Okay, and then Barnaby the gold bear. Yeah, he seems to be doing okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to be back, and it's been a little while, and I've been out of town quite a bit in the last two and a half months. So, but I am back in town now. And yes, let's talk a little bit about Missouri, because my time got taken up immediately after the end of session, but I can explain to people what happened if they didn't know about what happened with gold and silver in the state of Missouri. A single man stopped it from actually crossing the finish line. One politician, his name is Dean Plocker. And that's because Bill Eigel, who was the sponsor of the bill, who's a senator, decided that we weren't going to have any more corporatist bills from the House going through in the Missouri Senate until we got some grassroots bills through. And so he decided to basically stop any more House special interest bills from going through the Senate. And then Dean Plocker responded in kind by saying, well, you know, since you're doing that, we're not going to let your grassroots bills through. So it was a standoff between the House and the Senate, basically between Bill Eigel, senator, who wanted grassroots bills to go through, and then Dean Plocker, who's Speaker of the House, and in the House decided, well, since we're not getting our corporatist bills through, we're not going to let the grassroots bills go through. This has happened before in Missouri. You know, their legislature, and by the way, they're both quote unquote Republicans, but one is constitutional, and that would be Senator Bill Eigel, and the other one is not. I'm not trying to turn it into a political show. I'm just letting you know what happened with gold and silver.
Sure.
It had tremendous support throughout the entire legislature, with the exception of Democrats. There were a few Democrats that liked it in the House, but most of them didn't want it. And almost every single Republican wanted it. And the bill got cleaned up at the very end, Ron, cleaned up on the floor. So it was a totally constitutional bill, no crypto in there. An amendment was offered to take it out, and it never even got voted on. So, yep. So that's exactly what happened.
And this legislation would have allowed Missouri citizens to reclaim their right to use gold and silver as legal tender, as I want to beat for any new viewers that might be here with us, as was outlined in the United States Constitution and a number of other states, right? We had, you know, I don't know how many there are now, but there was a wave of states working on this type of legislation. I know Kansas passed it, Texas, I believe, has passed it. I mean, a whole bunch of states. And you would think Missouri, a state that is full of people that, you know, like the Constitution, would have been able to get it passed. But you're not giving up. Is
no,
that
absolutely not. In fact, I'm going to make a small correction here on what got passed this year. First of all, there were 23 states that had some type of gold and silver legislation getting closer, or not just closer, but finishing up making gold and silver legal tender in their states. So here's what got done. The first state to get it done was Arkansas. And then Arkansas, what they got done was, number one, gold and silver is legal tender. And number two, they got rid of capital gains taxes on gold and silver. So the second state was Tennessee. And Tennessee got literally a depository. So they didn't even get legal tender. They just got a depository for the state so they can actually start shoring up the state pension fund. And then we have Mississippi that actually got rid of sales tax on gold and silver, a very important first step. If your state has sales tax, you got to get rid of that before you can go any further on any other gold and silver legislation. And those are the 3 states that got something done in 2023 out of 23 states that tried.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and then we'll get into nuts and bolts on some of the other states and what they had told me about why they didn't get anywhere with gold and silver.
Okay. Okay. So it's a movement that still has some work to be done. And it's safe to say that grassroots support is critical to these type of legislation.
That is absolutely correct. And thank you for bringing that up, Ron, because that is actually quintessential to getting gold and silver legislation done, because legislators or the General Assembly in your state, no matter your state, literally assign a priority based on the squeakiest wheel, those who are the loudest. If you do not have a grassroots movement in your state to move gold and silver legislation, it's really difficult to move. Exceptions to this were Arkansas and Mississippi. Now, Tennessee had star power behind it. Catherine Austin Fitts and David Knight, they're 2, well-known personalities, stepped in and went to House and Senate hearings in Tennessee because they both live there. So they had star power behind it, and then a grassroots had developed around them. So Tennessee did have some grassroots activity. Arkansas and Mississippi didn't have so much, but they had enough to get it done. Other states, like for instance, when I was talking to legislators in Idaho, they said they had absolutely no grassroots support, no phone calls coming in, or very, very few. And so that's why it was not made a high enough priority to push it through. Now, in the case of Missouri, we had overwhelming support. Thousands and thousands of phone calls, in large part to Ron's Basement's channel and your channel, Ron. And because we had timely access to your audience to help us with phone calls and emails, that actually was felt. And we actually saw it in real time. If you remember, we did a video while I was actually in the parking garage in Jefferson City. We immediately went up to the office in question and saw the phone just literally ringing off the hook. They could not keep up with the phone calls. Most of them were being dumped into voicemail. So we saw it in real time. The thing was, it was just Dean Plocker. And once again, Representative Dean Plocker is running for lieutenant governor. I want everyone to remember what he did in 2023. I'm not going to go back to what he's done in past years, but he's running for lieutenant governor. And corporatist bills, special interest bills, are his forte. That's what he does. That's why he's so powerful. And but grassroots bills take a back seat to him. What the people of Missouri want take a back seat to what he wants, and what he wants is what his corporate paymasters tell him he needs to do. So that's what he wants. So grassroots critical, yes.
And the people of Missouri want this legislation to pass.
Indeed. Oh, they made their voices very, very, very. There's no way you could mistake it. There's probably only one bill in the history of Missouri that received this much support, and that was the Second Amendment Preservation Act.
Wow. What's the timeline now as we move through the rest of 2023 and into 2024? What's the timeline that we'll be looking at in terms of, I guess, the next legislative session? Is that the correct way to say it?
You bet. Okay. Well, technically, there is a small chance, and I don't want to get people's hopes up because I'm waiting to get more data from Republican central committees around the state. There is a chance we may get this done in a governor's special session. That would be in September of this year. Okay. Now, once again, this is really, really important for folks to understand. Don't make phone calls to the governor's office just yet. If we get enough Republican central committees around the state voicing that they want gold and silver done, then we'll start making our phone calls and sending our emails. But right now, I only have information on 3 Republican central committees out of there's some 60 some odd Republican central committees in the state or something. Actually, there's more than that, but at any rate, we need more sending their letters to the governor with resolutions saying you have to make this a priority. Let's do a special session on gold and silver. Let's get legal tender done. Christian County, the county that I live in, has done it. Cass County has done it, and Franklin County has done it.
Okay.
So we're waiting for more central committee. So there is a small chance, I would put it at somewhere right around a 5% chance that we may get a special session to get gold and silver across the finish line in September in a governor's special session. Okay, if that fails, and that's a 95% likelihood that that won't go through. In other words, I'm saying the governor won't take it up as an issue during a special session. If that doesn't happen, we'll pre-file again on December 1st of this year. And we have a lot of momentum from 2023 to go into the 2024 legislative session. So this is something where all the work that people do, and this is very important for folks to know that are in Missouri, all the phone calls and all the emails that you made actually still have an impact going into the next year. So that effort was not wasted at all. Believe me, that helps a great deal next year. We're hitting the ground running. Whereas in the beginning of 2023, it was a new bill. We had to put in a lot of effort physically in Jefferson City to get everyone to read it, to know it, to love it, and to let them know that there was that much support behind it. So, but we don't have any elections this year. So we're going to have the same folks in 2024 that we had in 2023 in our General Assembly. So we've got momentum.
So we have momentum, and you have a population of legislators who have already been exposed to this, right? They know.
That's right.
And I want to point something out positive, Pat. You have momentum, and we came very close last year. So
yes.
It feels to me like 2024 could be the year, especially building upon the momentum that's already been established. We won't give up, right? I know
correct.
Pat Holland,
we won't give up.
I know Pat Holland won't give up.
No, I won't give up. And I've heard a rumor that Dean Plocker is going to be a very different man in 2024 because he's running for lieutenant governor. He's going to have to give some of the grassroots what they want, even though he regularly denies them what they want. And he's been doing it for 7 years.
Right.
So this might be the year that he actually is magnanimous and gives the people but they cannot forget what he's done in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
As he's running for lieutenant governor.
Feels like there's a confluence of factors that may lead to 2024 being the year where Missouri residents, Missouri citizens are able to reclaim their right to use gold and silver as legal tender again.
I think so. Yeah. And like I said, and the people of Ron's Basement, the people that sub to your channel, were instrumental in helping that. Yes, we already had a big group working on it, but those timely phone calls bombing Jefferson City did get very well noticed. I mean, when you have thousands of phone calls coming in a day, I mean, that gets noticed.
I think that's important that we and you've done a great job of it during our conversation here, that we point out to everybody watching that you do make a difference. You can make a difference. And most people aren't in Missouri, but wherever you are, whatever state you may be in, maybe even whatever country you're in, but if you're in a different country, you might likely be in a country that already has a higher level of recognition for gold and silver. But whoever you are, wherever you are, you can make a difference. And it's important to, let your voice be heard. I mean, that's in theory what the legislatures are there for, to represent you. So, you elect them, and you're perfectly within your rights to make some noise and let them know what your wishes and desires are.
Absolutely. And that's what we do in the Missouri Freedom Initiative. We want constitutional legislation. We don't do the right-left paradigm thing. We truly don't. And it's important, everyone who's watching Ron's Basement, understand this. If you're in a state that's trying to get gold and silver done, you have time right now during the summer while your General Assembly is out of session to start a grassroots army to get that legislation across the finish line in your state. We're reporting on what Missouri's doing, but other states are trying to do this too. Make sure that you're a part of it. Don't be a bystander. Bystanders don't get things done. We need to be movers and shakers. All of us need to be movers and shakers to get back gold and silver as legal tender in all of our states.
Yeah, just as our founding fathers laid out for us in the Constitution. I always want to remind that, people of that. Like, there were great sacrifices made. I read an article recently about the sacrifices that the framers of our Constitution went through. They went through some very difficult times. Their houses being burned down, their families being imprisoned, all types of horrible things. They did that to protect us, and maybe we owe it to them to make sure that we respect what they laid out for us, hundreds of years ago.
Well, you make a great point, Ron, but let's talk about, the horrors we can envision coming with, social credit scoring and ESG, digital wallets, digital currency. There is no escaping that apart from gold and silver. So
Right.
that's it. Literally, this is it, gang. I mean, this is it. People say nonsense. There's Bitcoin. I'm sorry. Bitcoin is not going to be recognized as currency. It's just not going to be recognized, by a state as currency as easily as gold and silver will. So, that may be your black market stuff, but gold and silver really should be primary. It's in the Constitution, as Ron says. It's Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution, if anyone wants to look it up. It is the only thing recognized by the Constitution as money, not paper. That was done with an amendment later on.
Interesting. Pat, if people want to learn more about you, about your organization, is it mofree.org? Do I have that correct? Okay.
Mofree.org. Unfortunately, our website is in a horrible state of disrepair right now, and it has been for a couple of months. I am trying to find the time to fix that and get it up and running. People can't even join the mailing list right now in the state that the website's in. But hopefully we'll have it done here within the next week or two on the outside. And then we'll at least have it functioning enough. But we're adding a lot of functionality to the new website that was not there before. And one of them is forums. Very important. We need forums up and running on our website.
Excellent. Excellent. Pat, as always, you're a fan favorite here in Ron's Basement. We appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right, Ron, take care. And thank you so much for having me back in the basement. I appreciate it, buddy.
You got it. Anytime.